Hey YouTube, just wanted to make a video on the Mikuni VM24 carburetor swap on a TTR125 and my experiences with it. So to begin with, I have a stock motor. It does have a BBR cam in it, stock exhaust, stock bore. This isn't a big bore. I do have the top of the airbox cut open with a BBR filter in it. I'm at sea level and about 50, 60 degrees. So as far as the modification of getting this carb onto the bike, it's really easy. As you can see, I just put a different clamp on the front intake boot. There's a small nub on the intake boot that you have to kind of trim back with a knife to allow this carburetor to sit all the way in to that intake boot. And then your carb boot or your airbox boot, if you loosen up your airbox bolts up top, you should have enough play in those bolt holes that you can slide this boot onto the back of this carburetor. And that's how you kind of have to get it on there. It's a tight fit. You kind of have to stretch the boots, but I did get it to go on there and it wasn't too bad. You can see I have the fuel line ran over top of the frame. The fuel line back there isn't in the same exact spot and doesn't have the angle to it like the stock carb does. So you're gonna have to run a new fuel line. But as far as installing it, that's pretty much it. TTRs 07 and older have a single throttle cable, so you can hook right into this slide cap and it works good. 08 and up to present, I believe, have dual throttle cable, one's push and one's pull. I've read that you can just use the push or pull side and abandon the other side. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but I've heard that's something you can do. Or you could just find an 07 or later TTR throttle assembly and use that. I actually bought this carb through BBR Motorsports. And I never was able to get it to run right on this bike. Every time you hit the throttle, give the throttle a quick hit, it wants to just bog. It starts right up and idles fine. And if you rev the bike out real slow, just kind of ease into the throttle the whole way, it'll rev out. But if you just hit the throttle in any sort of quick manner, it just wants to bog and die. I've tried all sorts of pilot jets, main jets, different positions on the needle clip, and I just can't get it to run right. I've tried a 15 pilot up to a 40 pilot and a 120 main up to a 190 main. And the combination that worked the best for this setup was a 20 pilot and a 125 main. But even with that setup, you still have, right as soon as you whack the throttle, you get a bog. No matter what clip the needle's in, how many turns your air screw has. So I'm gonna say for a relatively stock TTR125, you don't wanna put this carburetor on it. Maybe with the big bore kit and an exhaust, this would work better, but just for the stock bike, you cannot get this carb. You can't get it to run perfectly. You're always gonna have some sort of bog when you hit the throttle, which I personally don't like. So I think I'm gonna pull this carb off and put the stock carb back on. And I'll take this off and I'll show you the stock carb for comparison to this one. So here's some of the jet combos I've tried and used in this carburetor with no success. And then I also read in a forum that this 4L6 needle gets rid of the quick throttle bog, but I put it in and the bike would hardly even run with that needle in there. So I went back to the stock needle that came in the carburetor. I'll show you guys how it runs right now and that bog that I'm talking about. Here's the spark plug that I had in there while I was running that VM24. As you can see, it's all sooty. The bike was definitely running rich, even having that open air box and the BBR air filter kit. Yeah, so right there, that bog's pretty bad. It's to the point you can't even ride it. So here's a side-by-side of the two carburetors. The VM24 is the one on the left, the stock is the one on the right. So just looking at the intake, or at the airbox side, you can see how much more open this 24 is. This one's pretty restrictive, the stock. The other main difference is the 24 has this choke plunger on the side. And then right here is your fuel inlet, which is pointing straight up. On your stock carb, you've got your inlet on an angle, which makes it easier to connect your fuel. And then obviously the stock carb has the plunger that goes up by your handlebars. So there they are, side by side. Mikuni's VM24 stock carb.